Steal her storyline. Would you want this, blessing? The stifling scent of lilies and myrrh clung to the air, thick and suffocating. It permeated every corner of the Howard family estate's impossibly high-ceilinged drawing room, mingling with the hushed conversations and the glitter of jewels amidst the crowd, painting a picture of restrained, distant mourning befitting the upper echelons. I, Seraphina Howard, or so this newly bestowed name went, stood by the vast floor-to-ceiling window, wearing a black dress that was clearly ill-fitting, even slightly frayed at the hem, gazing out at the geometrically precise, yet soulless, Mediterranean-style garden. I felt like an extra who had wandered onto the wrong set, utterly out of place amidst the Italian marble floors, the hanging old master paintings, and the palpable aura of wealth that saturated the atmosphere. Footsteps halted behind me, carrying an air of unquestionable authority. My biological father, Alexander Howard, and my mother, Isabella, her makeup impeccable but her eyes betraying weariness and detachment, approached. Half a step behind them followed the daughter nourished for 20 years in the gilded cradle of the Howard family, Callista. Dressed in a perfectly tailored black Chanel suit, her eyes slightly red-rimmed, she appeared fragile and delicate, like an orchid requiring a carefully controlled environment to survive. Seraphina, Alexander began, his voice a carefully modulated baritone, layered with the detachment born of a lifetime of command. From today, you will live here. Officially, you are a poor distant cousin from the Greek side of the family, here under our patronage. Callista, his gaze shifted to her, revealing a faint, almost habitual trace of warmth, has a weak heart. She's sensitive and must not be subjected to any distress. For the past 20 years, she has been the acknowledged daughter of the Howard family, and she will remain so. Do you understand? Isabella's lips parted slightly, but she remained silent, averting her eyes from mine. Callista leaned against Isabella, looking up at me with a timid, doe-eyed expression. Her clear blue eyes held a barely perceptible scrutiny, that of the secure incumbent. Seraphina, thank you for agreeing to this, her voice was melodious, laced with a perfectly measured tremor. I turned around, my face expressionless, my gaze sweeping slowly over the three faces that formed the foundation of my so-called new life. How ironic. Blood relatives, their first demand upon the return of a daughter lost to the struggles of an Athenian working-class neighborhood, was for her to remain hidden in the shadows, to protect the delicate nerves of the substitute, who had usurped her life for 2 decades. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, a gesture that couldn't quite be called a smile. All right. My voice was calm, even verging on docile. Alexander seemed satisfied with my acquiescence, the tightness in his brow easing slightly. Isabella let out a nearly inaudible sigh of relief. The wariness in Callista's eyes faded, replaced by a deeper, almost overflowing pity. No one saw the fingers at my sides, their tips pressing briefly into my palms, leaving faint white crescents that quickly vanished. What I wanted was never charity. It was reclamation. On my own terms. A few days later, the cast for a new season of Gilded Games, a wildly popular European reality TV dating show featuring the wealthy elite, was announced. Among the scions of earls, tech moguls, and fashion icons, the name Seraphina, distant relative of the Howard family, appeared. In the promotional photos, the other contestants posed against backdrops of castles or yachts, adorned in designer clothes and perfect makeup, their smiles standardized. Only I stood against a plain wall, wearing a simple white shirt, my face free of makeup, offering the camera a faint, aloof smile that stood out starkly amidst the glamour, strangely compelling in its incongruity. The news caused an uproar in the Howard study. Preposterous. An utter disgrace. Alexander slammed his tablet onto the expensive rosewood desk, the screen cracking instantly. Who gave you permission to appear on this vulgar spectacle? Withdraw immediately. The Howard name is not a tool for you to seek attention. Isabella frowned, her perfectly sculpted brows furrowing with suppressed displeasure. Seraphina, how could you be so thoughtless? This kind of program, it's beneath us. What will our friends think? Callista chimed in softly, her words expertly fanning the flames. Papa, Mama, please don't be angry. Seraphina probably just hasn't been exposed to such things before, coming from her background. She must not have meant to upset you. I stood in the center of the study, a prisoner awaiting sentence. I still wore my cheap clothes. Facing the torrent of fury and accusation, I merely lifted my chin slightly, my tone flat. The contract is signed. The penalty clause is astronomical. And I paused deliberately, my gaze skimming over Callista. I'm just a poor student. I don't represent the Howard family. Any disgrace wouldn't touch you. You. Alexander was momentarily speechless, his face darkening. Serafina, how can you speak to Papa like that? Callista's eyes welled up with perfectly timed tears. I didn't engage further, turning and walking upstairs. My back was thin but straight. The conflict was temporarily suppressed. The Howards tried to leverage their connections to force the producers to replace me, but found the contract ironclad, the penalty ruinously high, and the production company, smelling the potential of this contrast narrative, refusing to budge. Alexander ultimately issued an ultimatum. I was forbidden from mentioning the Howard name under any circumstances, or I would be thrown out immediately. I agreed to everything, docile beyond reproach, yet it felt more like the calm before a self-generated storm. Gilded Games was filmed in a secluded, luxurious Swiss Alps resort, broadcast in real time. The first episode commenced amidst the opulence of a grand ballroom. Under enormous crystal chandeliers, the male contestants wore tailored suits with cufflinks that sparkled with silent expense. The women floated in gowns, their jewels glittering, their makeup works of art. Only I remained in my simple, slightly faded clothes, my face bare, tanned by Eastern European sun, sitting in the farthest corner like an ugly duckling lost in Swan Lake, the contrast brutal. The cameras seemed particularly fond of my incongruity, often capturing my quiet profile, or the other female contestants' undisguised scorn during interactions. Oh, Mademoiselle Serafina, your outfit is quite unique. Is it from an emerging Eastern European designer? A French contestant dripping in Dior couture asked, a mocking smile playing on her lips. I looked up at her, my gaze steady. No. High Street. Sale rack. 30 euros. Her smile froze, and she turned away awkwardly. Online, the court of public opinion had already convened. The hashtag Howard poor cousin Serafina even trended briefly in Europe, flooded with ridicule. OMG, is she here as a backdrop? Dressed like that on hashtag Gilded Games? Heard she's actually some distant poor relation of the Howards, got nerve. Who does she think she's fooling with that holier-than-thou act? The other girls are the definition of elegance. She's dragging the tone down. Callista sat in the estate's plush private cinema, watching the real-time comments scroll, a smile she couldn't suppress curling her lips. She picked up her phone and liked an abusive comment about me using an anonymous account. The segment titled A Glimpse into Your World pushed the contrast to its extreme. The socialites played Chopin on the piano with skilled ease, demonstrated ikebana with refined taste, or performed a snippet of modern ballet with graceful movements. When it was my turn, the host, with a mix of embarrassment and voyeuristic anticipation, called my name. I walked to the center of the space. The spotlight hit me, illuminating every thread of my cheap clothing. The live audience and viewers at home were poised to unleash more mockery. I simply stated, quietly, I don't possess the kind of elegant hobbies that require generational wealth and time to cultivate. The comment feed exploded. Ooh, sour grapes already. Being poor is no excuse. So bitter. Then, my next words brought all the noise to a dead halt. The only thing I might be proficient in is something more practical. I paused, my gaze sweeping almost imperceptibly over the main camera lens, cold and penetrating. For instance, judging which investments in emerging tech sectors could yield returns exceeding 800% within the next 5 years. A stunned silence fell over the set. Even the seasoned host was momentarily lost for words. At that moment, unhurriedly, I drew something from my seemingly empty, worn-edged canvas bag. It was no ordinary card. It was a deep, profound black, made of a material that was both metallic and not, its edges inlaid with a nearly invisible tracery of dark gold microcircuitry. Under the lights it didn't gleam ostentatiously but seemed to absorb the surrounding illumination, somber, weighty, exuding an icy, technological authority that transcended fashion. The live stream was instantly flooded with a frenzy of question marks and exclamation marks. Holy! Is that an obsidian key? The top-tier obsidian key from United Swiss Private Bank. Globally limited issue, rumor has it holders need 3 generations of vetting and asset scrutiny. How could a poor student have one? Prop, has to be a stunt by the producers. Bull. Look at the material. The way it catches the light. If that's a prop, I'll eat my hat. Possessing that means near limitless credit and access within the USP bank system, poor.So. The director in the control room nearly jumped out of his seat, yelling incoherently into his headset. All cameras. On that key. Tight shot. God. The ratings. The ratings are going vertical. In the ensuing, absolute silence, I held the obsidian key, the symbol of ultimate wealth and clandestine power, between 2 fingers, my voice still flat, yet landing like a nuclear device on a frozen lake. A formal introduction. My maternal great-grandmother was an ethnic Chinese expatriate who settled in Scandinavia. She ran some modest cross-border trade operations. She passed away last year. I inherited her entire overseas estate. I let the pause hang, my eyes scanning the stunned faces of the contestants and crew. The sum is modest. Just about enough to acquire the parent company of this production, and perhaps provide a capital injection to a few bankrupt, yet still familiar, century-old luxury brands. Boom. The set erupted. Gasps, sharp intakes of breath, the scrape of overturned chairs, and disbelieving whispers merged into a chaotic symphony. Cameras swarmed me, flashbulbs popping like a frenzied strobe light. Back in the Howard Private Cinema, Callista, who had been sipping Darjeeling and preparing to relish my downfall, felt her smile freeze, then shatter. She shot up from the plush velvet sofa, her body trembling with sheer shock and the furious, betrayed rage of something being stolen. The expensive Meissen cup in her hand smashed onto the marble floor, shattering, the hot tea staining her costly velvet robe. She seemed not to notice. Impossible. Absolutely impossible, she shrieked, her voice a piercing screech that tore through the manor's tranquility. The mask of delicate vulnerability she so carefully maintained shattered completely, revealing only twisted, jealous insanity. You're lying. That inheritance. That was meant to be mine. Great-grandmother's everything was left to me. It was you. You thieving wretch, you stole what's mine. She descended into a fit of hysteria, grabbing anything within reach, the remote, a silk cushion, a crystal ashtray, and hurling them wildly at the massive projection screen. My impassive face on the screen was the ultimate taunt. Callista. Callista. Calm down, darling. Isabella, terrified by her daughter's sudden madness, rushed to embrace her. Get off me. Callista shoved Isabella away with surprising force, her eyes bloodshot, pointing a shaking finger at the screen. Mama. That's mine. You said everything in the Howard family would be mine. How dare she, a bug crawling out of the Athenian slums. She stole my place, and now she's stealing my inheritance. She should burn in hell. Just then, the study door burst open. Alexander, clearly on an urgent call, his face livid, a vein throbbing at his temple, roared into his phone. His voice, fueled by impotent fury, carried faintly through the residual audio feed into the studio. Serafina. You disgrace to this family. Get back here now. I disown you. Every asset in your name, I'll have frozen with the Swiss immediately. You won't touch a single cent. I will make you understand the price of betraying your family, of deceiving the world. This disembodied, desperate roar was meant as a final, crushing verdict from on high. The entire studio, along with millions of viewers worldwide, witnessed, through the faint audio and the spectacle of Callista's complete breakdown, the shocking moment the facade of this elite family was torn away. Viewer numbers skyrocketed. Social media platforms buckled under the strain of discussion. Amidst the ultimate chaos and a silence thick with anticipation, I on the screen finally turned to the camera. Slowly, deliberately, I allowed the first genuine smile of the entire show to touch my lips. It was no longer faint. It was sharp, icy, laced with mockery, triumph, and even a flicker of pity. I held up my phone, which I'd somehow palmed, its screen facing the main camera. It clearly displayed the real-time global ratings for Gilded Games. A green line, steep as a cliff face, had shattered all previous records, hovering next to a staggering, unprecedented number. My voice, clear through the high-quality microphone, rang out across the set, and into millions of homes worldwide, calm yet carrying the weight of a mutually assured destruction. Freeze my assets. Cast me out. Be my guest. But Father Callista, I paused, my eyes like cold scalpels, dissecting the Howard family's glossy exterior through the screen, the broadcast, from the moment I revealed the obsidian key, through your magnificently dramatic family performance just now. I pushed the phone forward again, making the record-shattering numbers impossible to ignore. The global ratings have just broken every record in the history of reality television on this planet. Care to guess what the headlines in the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, TMZ, and every gossip rag you care about will say tomorrow, no, within the hour, about the Howard family? About your meticulously cultivated, precious Callista. I stood there, the chaos of the set behind me, the greedy lenses of countless cameras before me, like a precisely guided missile that had found its mark. The Howard family's gilded cage, seemingly impregnable, now had a massive crack blown right through it, showered in the falling debris of scandal and global ridicule. And this was only the beginning.